Hello, I'm Warren Butler. I'm the HR teacher here at Devonport for TAFE, and I guess you're watching this because you're interested in how to complete the assessment for the recruitment unit in Certificate 4. So that's BSBHRM405, and it's called Support the Recruitment, Selection and Induction of Staff. And you'll have a pack that looks something like that, or you may have been sent it electronically or downloaded it from the web. Anyway, so I'm just here to discuss the package, the best way to get through it, and hopefully answer some questions that you might have about it. So I apologise for the thickness of the assignment. It's actually only a few pages that ask you some questions and expect you to complete some assignment tasks. But the front matter is pretty important. It talks about who your teacher is, how to contact me, assessment information, a bit of information about the unit itself. These are taken from the training.gov website. They're nationally accredited units, so you'll find the same for every registered training organisation who delivers this unit. There's a little bit about submitting assessment, reasonable adjustment if you have special needs. I need to know about that so that I can do that if that's the case. A little bit about due dates. The dates are generally 6 weeks from the time of a workshop or from the time you start a unit, but that can be negotiated as well. A little bit about appeals. You can appeal decisions that I make, firstly to me, and then other people may get involved if we have a dispute, but that's never happened, so hopefully that won't. There's a note about plagiarism, so that's pretty important. So that's when you need to acknowledge information that you get from a website or from somebody else. You just need to reference that. I'm not going to be really pedantic about how that is done, but as long as you acknowledge when you get information from another source and obviously not copy someone else's work or copy stuff from the net and make it appear like it's your own. It does come across fairly obviously when I read it, so it's pretty important that we don't plagiarise. A little bit about confidentiality and other things, but I'll let you read all those. The first important page as far as the assessment goes is page 7. So this is a resources page. It lists the textbooks, the workbooks, other resources that you can access to help you with the assignment. So this page, when you get electronically, you can have a direct link to most of the websites. Anything to do with HR, we thoroughly recommend that you go to the Fair Work Ombudsman website. Look for the help and the guides in there and some of the templates that are provided. They'll be compliant, so we know that's going to be close to best practice. In some cases, there are other government sites that you can use that explain things a bit better or a little bit more concise, but I expect you to do a bit of research, come up with the things that you think work best for you and your workplace if you're working there. So they're pretty important, that resource list, especially those guides that you can access online. A little bit about the cover sheet that we need submitted with every assignment. So it basically shows that you agree with the conditions that you're submitting it under, and that we need a signature, but if you do it electronically, obviously just your name will be fine in there. The next page, page 9, is a summary of the tasks that are required to complete the unit. There's always 2 basic tasks. One is knowledge-based stuff, so we expect you to know that from your research, what you've gleaned from the workshop and the notes that you've been provided with. Answering those questions, so they're knowledge-based questions about recruitment, selection and induction in general. And then the assignment tasks, which is 2, which we call a project, is generally where you perform tasks or simulate tasks as though you're in a real work environment. So that demonstrates you're competent at the unit, specifically showing that you're doing it at work or in a work sort of situation. So let's turn on to page 10 then. There are 7 questions here. So these are the written questions where we expect answers that once again are about your general knowledge about recruitment, selecting and HR. So the first one is list and briefly describe the impact of legislation that will be relevant to recruiting, selecting and inducting staff. So what we're expecting there is a list of the relevant legislation. It would include anti-discrimination, equal employment opportunity, the Fair Work Act, and maybe a few others, work health and safety. basically we're looking for something there to show that you're aware of the legislation, what effect it would have. So merit-based selections, the best people as they're defined in the job description, that's what we're looking for when we come to selecting people. We don't discriminate, we don't ask questions about age, gender, bias and all that sort of stuff. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for there. So not a lot of detail, just enough to show that you're aware of the impact of those various bits of legislation. Question number 2 then is, how can job descriptions and selection criteria be of benefit to both the applicant and the prospective employer? So that's a pretty obvious one, isn't it? We define the job accurately, and the person that we need, or the attributes the person needs to have, the qualifications and experience in the selection criteria, no understanding, hopefully that makes it easier for both parties. We also, on number 3, we're looking at other ways to promote a job rather than sticking an ad in the paper. There'll be heaps of other ones. LinkedIn, Facebook come to mind straight away. Seek, Career One. There are lots and lots of options, but we wanted to discuss the advantages of using those. Next one is, what is the purpose of conducting a background investigation of a job applicant and what sources of information can be used? So this one is, the most common one is a referee check, where we're asking work-related questions about the applicants, so we get an idea, as long as the person's telling us the truth. And sometimes these are written as well into a referee report, and we can verify the claims that have been made by the applicant. And we may also want to check on qualifications and things if there's any doubt that these things are actually authentic. So that's what we're looking for in that one. Number 5 then is about selection interviews. You're going to get practice at doing at least one of those as part of the assessment. But there are a whole lot of vague things that can go wrong, I suppose, with interviews. And this question is asking you to think of at least 5 things you could do to try and make them more reliable. But we'll discuss those obviously in the workshop, and look at the notes and the things that you look at for research. We'll cover those as well. Number 6, what are the benefits that an organisation and new employees can hope to gain by having an effective recruitment, selection and induction program in place? So apart from making it clear what the job's about, it's going to help with culture development, it's going to help with performance management, it's going to help with learning needs, career progression, all those sort of things. So that's just a quick summary, but that's what we're looking for there. And lastly, number 7, prepare a flowchart or a listing that depicts the HR cycle from beginning to end. Basically, in any of the textbooks or the Better Workplaces resource particularly, there's a fantastic diagram there that shows you the HR cycle and the process required to do an effective recruitment, selection and induction process. So have a look at those, and a little flowchart will be good. You can hand do that if you're not proficient with the software that might do that. Okay, so that's the written questions, assignment task 1 or assessment task 1. Then we move on to the project. So the first part of the project is about job analysis and recruitment. So you've probably done job analysis without realising it, or maybe you haven't heard the term before, but basically it's just looking at a job and deciding what are the things that are done in that job. What are the requirements the person has to have, in other words, their knowledge, experience, qualifications, etc., to be able to do the job. You put those two things together, you end up with a job description. So if you've ever done a job description, you've done job analysis. But there are a number of ways you can do that, and I'd ask you to look through the text and just see how would you do that. So let's look at the detail of what's required in this part 1 of the Assessment Task 2 project. 1.1, for 2 positions that you choose from your own organisation, from your experience, or from another organisation that you can have access to, we want you to look at what will be required if you're going to fill those jobs as far as the relevant approval processes for the budget, and also what timelines would you expect from asking to fill the job to actually getting someone in the job. So that's fairly general, but every organisation usually have policies around that. You can't just say, oh yeah, we'll replace that person, let's recruit and get straight into it. You need to think about it a bit. So the next part is the thinking about it a bit. That's the job analysis. Okay, we need to look at what's required in the job. Are there any new things that we should put into this job? Can we combine two jobs when we look at someone's left? This is an opportunity to sort of redesign the job. We also need to link that into what the workplace, the organisation is doing as far as its strategic direction. What's its corporate plan? Does this job, what parts of this job feed into that? So that's usually in the job purpose part of the position description. But we can discuss those. And you look at templates for job descriptions, position descriptions. Sometimes they're called statements of duties as well, particularly in the public service. They all mean the same thing. Okay, and then we go on to preparing a position description. So we're going to have 2 position descriptions. One could even be your job. So it's a chance to redesign your own job. The other one could be someone that's not related to your field of work even. So if you're not a manager, maybe you can do one for a manager. It's good experience, good practice to look at a job you're not actually 100% sure about. So you've got to do that bit of research and design it to fit what the organisation needs. So it must include the selection criteria. So you might look at this and think, okay, it says person specifications. It's sort of an older term, but it's still used. But basically it's a selection criteria. In other words, we're specifying the knowledge, experience, skills, qualifications and attitudes or attributes that a person needs to do the job, more commonly known as selection criteria. Next phase is to prepare a job advertisement for these jobs. So once again, 2 jobs, but we need a job advertisement and also a recruitment strategy. Where would you source the most talented pool of recruits from? How would you get to them? Might be a newspaper. If it's a clerical job, maybe a newspaper and a regional newspaper is enough. Maybe put it on Seek, things like that. But if you're a small business, you might want to use Facebook because you've already got a following, and from your following, those people will know what your business is about. That's a head start if you come to recruit someone. But I need you to think about that, but at least come up with a job advertisement. There are lots of bits of information about how to do a job ad, particularly in Better Workplaces. Again, I refer you to that one. What do we do now? We're on to part 2. So that was the job analysis and recruitment. Now we've got selection and induction. So now I'm going to say, let's use just one of those 2 descriptions that you did in part 1. Probably one that you're most familiar with, particularly if it's about your own job. And I ask you to complete the following tasks just for that one position description. Now you've got to think that you're going to be recruiting to replace someone who's in that job. So, describe a shortlisting process in order to identify candidates that are suitable for selection. So in other words, you've done the advertising, whatever, but now you want a shortlist, and you might get 20, 30, who knows how many people apply. You obviously can't interview that many people, but you can usually rank those people down to a list of people, say 3 or 4, that you can interview, knowing that they're the best of the group that you've got. So rather than being time inefficient, if you like, interviewing people you don't think are going to get there, just interview the best ones. So that's what we call shortlisting, and you'll need to show me that you can use a template to do that, and the shortlisting is always based on the selection criteria. That can be the only guide you can use. You can't just do it on a whim because they're famous or because you like them, or they're your friend's friend or a relative. So it's got to be on selection criteria. The next part is to list any additional selection techniques considered appropriate for use during the selection process. So what could they be? And we need to look at the validity, reliability and relevance of those. So hopefully if it's a skills-based job, technical job, you'll be able to actually test people. They can show you how they do Excel spreadsheets, they can show you how they enter data, they can show you how they use a lathe or whatever is required in the technical job. Otherwise, a job might be specifically suited to particular personalities, so we can do some profiling. There are various tests available on that, but you've got to check for their authenticity, where they've come from, to make sure they're valid and reliable. They can be used. So psychometric testing can also measure attributes that people might have for a particular job. So there's quite a few other things you can do. But remember, we're just looking at the one job that you selected here. So what else could you do to, supplement the interview? We need something more than just the interview generally. Then we go on to C, what type of interview should be held and how should the interview be structured? So we're looking at the interview questions, how a panel might be set up, who's going to do the questioning, that sort of stuff. How do we get people to feel comfortable? So generally a round table makes people feel comfortable rather than 3 people on the other side and 1 on this side. That's obviously not comfortable. Everyone's going to be nervous, including you as the assessor or the interviewer, as well as the interviewee. So we need to make this as comfortable as we can to encourage conversation. So D then is actually to come up with those appropriate questions and some way of assessing the answers that you get. So it's important to carefully select the questions. Don't want too many. Usually an interview lasts for, 40 minutes or so, sometimes less. So we want to get as much out of that as we can, but lots and lots of questions will make it take too long, possibly. So that's pretty important. And must also think about how does a question relate to the selection criterion for each one? How does it relate? We need to come up with questions that cover the whole lot. Next one is describe the steps that could be taken to ensure a valid assessment is made of all candidates and that discussions amongst the panel members are effective. Consider how you would advocate for a candidate if you thought they were not being fairly assessed by the others. Excuse me, this is dry work, talking to a camera. So we need to think about that, okay? Can you advocate? Can you speak up on behalf of someone who you don't think is being fairly assessed? Maybe someone's run off on a tangent about something that they said rather than concentrating on what they've done, that sort of thing. F is in bold print here. That's where I get to see you in an interview situation. It's a role play. If you don't come to the campus or in a workshop, that's fine. We can do it over the phone, a phone interview. I'll send you the information you need. I'll supply the applicants and what the job is and things like that. So you'll get to see that next time we meet after a workshop or after you've submitted the other work. So it's just a practical demonstration of interviewing that I need to see. Next one is G, list the details which should be covered in the selection report to outline the process and make selection recommendations to senior staff. So we need to pick the bones out of a selection report. This information is sometimes then used to give feedback to people who weren't successful, so there needs to be enough in there for us to make a judgment. If someone rings up and says, why didn't I get the job? You've got no notes. It's a bit difficult to give them an answer, but always relate it back to the selection criteria, that someone else had more experience, more knowledge, better satisfied the selection criteria, that sort of thing. So that's pretty important to have a bit of information in the selection report. Outline the important aspects that should be included in a contract of employment for the selected position. You can actually supply a letter if you like, as though you've written it to someone to offer them a job, but we need to know what's in that. So usually it's enough information for the person who signs that contract to know exactly what they're getting in for, the award that they'll be on, the hours they work, the leave that comes with it, all those sort of things. Next one is describe the content of letters used to advise successful and unsuccessful candidates of the outcomes of the selection process. So once again, if you want to give me examples of letters rather than telling me about them, that'd be fine as well. And there are samples on the internet that you can use from the Fair Work Ombudsman and Better Workplaces. And lastly, outline an induction process that would assist the new employee to meet organisational and position requirements, settle into the job and the organisational setting. So an induction plan, in other words, is what we need there, just to get people basically employed. Well, the records are required from that, but also meeting all the people, understanding their terms and conditions of their employment. So, unfortunately, the lights are fading in here because it's automatic and I haven't moved, so I might finish it there. Just to say, it gives you a guide here, up to 1,500 words would cover all that, but if you've got sample letters and things like that, then the word count might not be relevant. But make sure you give you enough information to cover each of those things. If you have any queries, please email me or give me a call, and I'll help you as best I can. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing your work. Cheers.